Hey, um, Mariam, if you can unshare the banner, awesome. Um, Happy Saturday. So good to have you this wonderful morning or afternoon or wherever you are dialing. Um, I have the honor of welcoming you to this webinar. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Murad Wadwania. I have the honor of serving as IPS West lead. And professionally, I work at LinkedIn, leading product quality. We have a wonderful panel here to discuss thriving in uncertain times. Let me share a bit of context on this theme of thriving in uncertain times. It is not a surprise that we are going through a very uncertain times. You probably have heard of lot of downsizing, probably a lot of uncertainty for sure in the job market and in larger economy, not just specific to job market, but the larger economy in North America, but more broadly throughout the world. And these kinds of downturns definitely creates a lot of anxiety. It creates apprehensions. It creates fear. Um, and that's very normal. It's very normal to feel those anxiety if you are directly impacted or you are indirectly impacted. And a natural response during that time is to feel very anxious and apprehensive, as we all know. And you will hear from many of us, we have gone through that. But there is this notion that can this downturn be a time to thrive as well, build strength as well? It's a very powerful notion. And I want to introduce this is not a new notion for any one of us. And very recently, I'm reminded at the start of COVID, just rewind the tape maybe 3 years back or March, April of 2020, when we all entered the pandemic, and how scary that situation was, right? We didn't know what was in front of us, how to even navigate it. In fact, for many of us, this was first time in our lifetime, including myself, right? And if you recollect, Jamaat were closed in North America and probably throughout the world. And the very first Talika Mubarak Hazimam sent, I'm reminded of that, and it's on the the.ismaili website. I invite you to go to the.ismaili and look at that Talika Mubarak, which Imam sent it. And because Jamaat Khanas were closed, it was posted on our the.ismaili site. And Imam in that Talika Mubarak obviously gave us a lot of blessings, but one notion that Imam introduced is how do we build strength during this uncertain times? Imam said you should approach this challenge with a sense of building strength and wisdom, right? It's a very powerful notion. Everyone is afraid, and Imam is talking of building strength and wisdom during these uncertain times. And now, as I reflect back to last 2.5 years, what we have navigated together, hopefully many of us came out of this pandemic with a lot of wisdom, a lot of emotional, intellectual, professional, and inshallah material strength as well, right? What a powerful paradigm shift that we all went through. And I'm wondering, can this also be a time where these downturn can be an opportunity for us to thrive and build strength and build wisdom and build capacity and build competencies for a long-term success for ourselves, our families, and our community? That's our aspiration. That is our hope. And with that, I have the privilege of introducing our moderator and a panelist. I'll pass on in a moment to our wonderful moderator. I want to give one disclaimer. We have a wonderful panel who have a very successful career. Our moderator himself is from Meta and had a career at multiple other names. We have our panelists from Netflix, from Amazon, from Southwest. And here we are not talking on behalf of our corporations or our professional capacity. We are talking as the member of Ismaili community, helping our brothers and sisters. So we want to make sure that that is very clear. These are our personal opinions and thoughts which we are sharing with you, we do not represent, as I would say, I'm not representing LinkedIn in my professional capacity here. I am talking as your fellow Ismaili professional here. With that disclaimer, it is my privilege to introduce our moderator, Shailene Keshwani. Shailene.
Thanks, Murat, for setting the stage. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a panel discussion on thriving in uncertain times. We all know that past year has brought unprecedented challenges for individuals and businesses alike, with widespread layoffs and job uncertainties. We will be discussing topics such as strategies on how to navigate these challenges and come out on top, talk about career resilience and upskilling, and most importantly, how to support and empathize with those who are struggling and how IPN can help. So sit back, relax, and prepare to laugh, learn, and leave with a plan to thrive in uncertain times. Before I introduce our awesome panel today, some housekeeping and public service announcements. This session is being recorded for future distribution and review. We will have 30 minutes of panel discussion followed by 15 minutes of live questions in the end. So feel free to write your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them. And just to reiterate the disclaimer Murat just went over, the session is made up of panelists' personal views, and the answers given do not represent your current or past employers. Lastly, subscribe to IPN Online if not already to be informed about job opportunities, networking, upskilling sessions, and reach out to connect@ipnonline.net for coaching requests. Our mentors can help in resume review, interview prep, and also offer negotiations. Now that we've got this out of our way, let's begin. Up next, we have a panel of recruiting ninjas who can find the needle in the haystack, diamond in the rough, and the perfect candidate for any role. I'm pretty sure if you asked them to find a unicorn, if you needed one, they would be able to do that. They've cast a spell on some of the biggest companies in the industry, and now they're here to share their magic with us. Going from A to Z, we have Nadia Rouhani, Sana Merchant, and Zinat Gamani. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and share your story. We can start with Nadia. Yeah.
Yali Madad, everyone. Happy Saturday. Excited to be on this panel. It's an honor for me to be invited. And thank you for participating, everyone. I was with Amazon. Most recently, I was also impacted by downsizing. I chose to take the release severance just because I felt that was the best option for me and my family. But I will be happy to share my thought process. Feel free to ask any questions you might have. And also, I come with over 20 years of experience, most in technical recruiting. Prior to Amazon, I worked with AutoNation, which is based here in South Florida, for about almost 4.5 years. And prior to that, I was with Ryder. So I do come with a lot of corporate experience, and I will be happy to share and provide any guidance that I can.
Thank you, Nadia. Sana?
Okay, I dropped in the chat that my goal today is to walk out with not having anyone say that I was on mute through the whole webinar. So I'm doing good, not on mute. Yelling with everyone. Happy Saturday. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sana Merchant. I live in Dallas, Texas with my husband and my dog, Raya. I currently am a leader at Southwest Airlines. I lead a team of recruiters that hire for technical talent at Southwest. My career has kind of been all over the place, if you will. I started off in kind of the legal world, thought I was going to go to law school and be an attorney, pivoted from there due to uncertain times in kind of the 07, 08, 09 non-hiring the non-hiring part of kind of that was going on at the time, stepped into marketing, worked in marketing for quite some time, owned my own company for a while, and then decided that people and talent and kind of workforce strategy is where my heart was, and completely pivoted and turned my career on its head and headed in that space. And so have been in the recruiting world for about 7 years or so now, and really, really excited to chat with all of you.
Thanks, Sana. Zina.
Yali Madad, everyone. Hi, my name is Zinat. I'm here in LA where it's pouring. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm so excited to be here. I think all of us had a pretty interesting background, which is really cool. I grew up undocumented, and then about 11 or 12 years ago, entered the workforce at a ed tech startup. And did sales and then training and development there. And then I moved over to recruiting for product and engineering at a media company that I really hope you all subscribe to. In the midst of that, I was able to do my MBA at UCLA. And today I also have a side hustle, which I really love, doing flower arrangements called Masala Flowers. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Like, it's awesome to have you guys. I was just thinking about it, like as a three panels, we have like close to over 30 years of recruiting experience here. Like we have a lot of brain power. Super excited. Thank you for being so open. Thank you for being here, guys. Nadia, I would like to start with you. Like, you know, like you opened up about like the reason, like how you decided to take the from the Amazon exit strategy from Amazon. Like, how are you keeping yourself motivated and focus on the future? Like, what advice would you have to give someone else who's going through a similar experience?
That's a great question. So I will tell you, the biggest thing for me is mental health. I told myself when I was making that decision that I have to stay positive. You know, I'm blessed, and I'm sure all of us are blessed here to have a really good support system, right? We have our community, we have our families. I'm a mother of two, so I do have the other job, which keeps me quite busy. So I thought about it and I said, why don't I turn this negative into a positive, right? All throughout COVID, life has been very stressful, right? Especially if you're a parent, you know, there was a lot of challenges. And the one thing that I earned for was time. I never seemed to have enough time. So I decided that I'm going to take this opportunity and take this as a gift of time. So what I do now is, you know, I thought about what are things that I wanted to do that I've not been able to do. And one of those things was volunteering in my kids' school. I could never do that because I was always working. So I started doing that. You know, I'm also thinking about going back to school. So I made a goal for myself that this is my time. You know, there's never been a good time for me. So I've actually started my application process to go back for my master's. And that's keeping me focused. The one thing I will tell you, you know, a part of me is still looking for another opportunity, right? So I do take some time during the day and I'll go online and look for what positions are out there. And as soon as I notice like I'm getting a little anxious or I'm getting frustrated, I stop. I just log off. I go for a walk. I just, you know, I have to keep telling myself, you know, to be positive. But I think with my experience, this is not the first time this has happened. I've been through this in the past. And I will tell you, it's a roller coaster ride, right? Our economy, everything that goes up must come down and what goes down must come up. So I also know that this is only temporary. Things are going to change. I think Murad made a good point about COVID, right? We didn't know, it was so uncertainty. We didn't know what was going to happen. And I think we all came out of it. And that alone gave me so much strength because I'm like, if I got through that, I can get through this. So the biggest advice I would say is just stay positive. Things are going to change. Don't lose hope. And also just take care of your mental health. And if that means you need to take time off social media, do it. Do what works for you. But just make sure that you stay healthy because if you stay healthy, everything will fall into place.
No, I think Nadia, like you hit the nail on the head. Thank you for like all the positivity, you know, like definitely being like the mental health is definitely a big thing that we need to think about. And then the roller coaster, like, you know, what goes up needs to come down. So it's just the circle of life you're going through. I think that's a good segue for like the next thing is like, what can impacted folks do to find employment quickly in challenging times? Maybe we can start with Zenat and then take other views.
Yeah, so I think I'll take a two-pronged approach to this because if you are an individual who is a little bit uncertain about what's going to happen this year, but haven't been impacted yet, I think it's really important for all of us to be ready. And so I recommend that no matter at what stage you're in, that you have two different types of resumes ready to go. And so, you know, one resume can highlight you in a certain way and one resume can highlight you in another way. Those should be constantly updated every quarter, no matter where you are in your employment stance. And two, I think that it's really important to think about skills that enhance your current field, particularly technical skills. Like if you are in HR, or if you are a teacher, or if you are, you know, in healthcare, it doesn't mean that technical skills can't be relevant to your future. And as a recruiter, I get so excited when I see somebody from a non-technical field who, you know, knows how to code in Python or has a little HTML on their resume, or, you know, can work with SQL, or has, you know, just gone back and built up their comfort level with something like Excel. So I think that sometimes we undervalue those technical skills a little bit, and now is the time to ensure that we just like bump ourselves up slightly.
Thanks, Zena. Like, I really love the way like of the two resume stuff. I know like that's been like one thing that, you know, I started doing it, and it's definitely helpful. Like, you know, being ahead in the game, you know, like what you are versus what you want to get there. Having that two resume or different set of resume, if you want to change your careers, are great to have that. So now, what's your take on it? Like, do you want to add something more to it?
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think one of the things that Nadia and Zenith kind of both touched on is really sitting down and kind of game planning, considering your mental health as well, right? But I think when you have a plan, it becomes a little easier to rest, relax, not let your brain go into overdrive. I have a lot of anxiety if I don't have a game plan, always kind of spinning and turning and trying to figure out what to do next. And so taking a look at the skills that you currently have, maybe where do you want to go? What are some things that are naturally kind of would apply? So for example, I owned my own company back when I kind of talked about making a career transition, and I realized that people were kind of my passion. And so what could I take from that experience of owning my own company that would translate into being a recruiter? And that's exactly what I did. And I made a resume that was more recruiting focused and made a resume that was more marketing focused, and ended up kind of going that recruiting path. But I think the biggest thing is kind of game planning and then figuring out how to get there. And so if there are missing skills, going out, getting those skills, talking to people in those spaces, and doing some exploratory work and counting that as work. That is actually a lot of work that you have to do to get there, and not stressing about that piece of it in your day-to-day as well.
Yeah, no, totally. The first step is the hardest step, right? You know, like what are the new skills and how are we going to find that? No, that's super helpful. Thank you for adding that. Nadia, do you want to add more flavor to it based on like the various experiences that you've seen through this one?
Yeah, I think one thing that I will add is, you know, building your network. That's really important too. You know, keeping in touch with your previous managers, you know, previous team members. You just don't know where someone is going to go, right? And I think that's really important. That's the one thing that I've been doing, you know, with this time that I have is, you know, keeping up with my network, checking in with people, just saying hello. You know, because that really helps. And also, you know, I think that provides guidance too, because you may need, like, I need recommendation letters, right? So I reached out to my old manager from AutoNation and I said, hey, how's it going? You know, we chatted a little bit. Then I said, listen, I'm going back to school. Can you write me a recommendation letter? She's like, yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really important, because I think when we move careers or we change, you know, companies, we kind of lose track of our old team members. And I think it's really important to keep in touch with them. So, you know, again, just building that network and also connecting with new people. Like if you see a position or company you're interested in, look up people that work there, check in with them, ask them about the culture, right? Just have a conversation. You'll be surprised, you know, what you'll learn.
No, that's awesome. Like networking is big. Like again, you know, IPN has like if you guys haven't subscribed to it, like IPN has a lot of networking. We have a lot of diverse people who actively help people. We have mentors who can help with like resume building and you know just connecting with people and just being there like in times of need. So I would recommend everyone on the call, please do that if you're not already. I think the next one is like with the times changing and this uncertainty, like what are your thoughts on like the emergence and viability of like independent contractors, consultant, the gig economy, like during this times? And Sana, maybe you can take lead on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally kind of contract work in the gig economy has kind of cycles. And so I do anticipate that kind of those opportunities overall will probably increase. That being said, you know, every company takes a look at their org health, takes a look at the type of work. There's multiple different types of contractors. You could be a project based contractor coming in through some of those professional services companies. You could be more of a contingent, which is more less project-based, more ongoing work and support. And so I think that kind of varies by company. I think the big thing that I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about is people are a lot of times scared to take contract opportunities. I started at Southwest as a contractor. You know, again, talking about a career pivot, when I left marketing, I wanted to be in HR and recruiting. I took a recruiting gig or job with an agency that staffed for Southwest. And when Southwest had a corporate recruiter opening available, I was able to kind of come on as a contractor. It really gave me an opportunity to get a feel for, is this a company that I want to work for long-term? Is this a career that I want long-term? And really allowed me to kind of get a feel for that and what team I wanted to be on. I actually moved multiple teams as a contractor to find kind of the right fit for myself. And so that can be an opportunity. And I would recommend that folks not shy away from it.
Perfect. Thank you. I know Zenith has something to add to it. Zenith, go for it.
Yeah, I'm on board with Sana. I think that, you know, it'll become a bit more popular. I think something that, you know, lots of companies are like, man, we messed up a little when it came to the pandemic, right? Like we overestimated our success. And so right now, all companies, regardless of what type of field, I think they're going to be a little bit more careful. And so they might hire contractors before converting them to full-time. I know historically, you know, companies like Apple have been doing this quite often, even before the economic changes. And so what I'm getting at is like, you know, a small point, but I think it's really important for our livelihoods is like things that help our mental health and just make sure that keep us going. One thing is just having steady health insurance. And so if you do think that you might be impacted or have been impacted, it's really important to know your worth in the market and what that translates to in terms of an hourly rate, so that if you do end up, you know, promoting yourself to like a staffing agency or getting some sort of hourly or contract role, that you're accounting for how much it costs for you to also have your health insurance or, you know, make your car payment or, you know, make your mortgage. And so these are things that I really recommend that, you know, you sit down, do like some sort of line by line as to like, how much do I need on short term and long term to make sure that my family and I are stable.
This is a wealth of information coming in here. I love the participation. Like Sana, like go for it. And
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think that's so spot on. I also wanted to add that different contract companies have different levels of benefits. And so again, just having that very clear conversation and understanding, are they providing benefits? What do those look like? And maybe even shopping around for a company that is meeting your needs if you aren't getting that, or if you're carrying the benefits for your family. So love that.
No, that's awesome. Like knowing your worth, you know, making sure, you know, you're like getting in your foot in as a contractor is also like one step to getting your job where you get to experience stuff. So like all great things here. I think on a similar note, like how can our professionals stand out from other candidates, you know, whether it's resume, whether it's skills, whether it's certification? I know we briefly touched for it, but like maybe we can tease out more in this, and we can start with like maybe Nadia here first and then go around the table.
Yeah, so, you know, as a recruiter, I will tell you, I love it when applicants reach out to me on LinkedIn and they introduce themselves, right? They go ahead and apply, but then they'll reach out to me and say, hey, I saw this post in your company. very interested. Can we set up a time? You know, they're more proactive. I think in this market, you're going to be competing, you know, against, I don't know how many, right? So you do want to stand out. So taking that extra effort, I think can go a long way. Remember, when you're applying, you know, on a company website or Indeed, you know, those resumes are going in an ATS, right? An applicant tracking system. You don't know who's at the other end looking at those resumes and what they're looking for, but you reaching out will pump up your resume to the top. Also, another thing that I also love is when, you know, candidates will do their research about the company and, you know, reach out to maybe a manager, you know, in the IT department, say, hey, I saw this post, you know, I'm very interested. I've had managers reach out to me directly and say, hey, this person reached out to me on LinkedIn. Can you please show me that, you know, send over their resume. Let's set up a call with them. So things like that, just being proactive will go a long way. Even in your resume, you know, make sure, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten resumes where there was grammar errors, you know, misspells. And I know sometimes people are just rushing, but take that extra time. Use IPM, have someone else look at your resume and proofread it for you, give you some recommendations, right? Because what you want to do is when you send that resume, when you hit that submit button, that's it, that resume is gone. There's nothing else you can do about it, right? So you want to make sure that's your first impression that employer is going to see, right? So you want to make sure everything is accurate, perfect. Make sure you're, you know, a lot of times candidates will put, you know, years of employment, but not months necessarily. I have a pet peeve, like I want to see the months and the years on the resume. So make sure you put accurate dates in there. You know, resumes should be concise. Don't send them a 4 or 5 page resume. I know in technology, you know, there's consultants, you know, we have a lot of information that you want to share, but you don't want to overshare. So keep that resume one to 2 page max. You know, if you can do 1 page, that's ideal, but 2 pages is okay too. But just make sure you give them enough information. You know, the way I look at it is you're sharing a book, right? The resume is the cover of the book, and it should be enough enticement for them to open it and read it. And you want to get to that interview process. So just make sure that you're very cautious of your resume, because again, that's your first impression.
No, I think you covered a lot of great points. I'm not proud of it, but I was guilty as charged. My resume had a lot of grammatical errors when I just came out of school. So, you know, it was a big one, and I was like, oh shit. So no, like, please, yeah, those are one of the things, like, you know, spend time, like, because that is how you sell yourself. So let's make sure everyone do that right. Being proactive, yeah, like I love that fact. You know, that's I think that helps a lot. Like you said, you know, you don't want your resume in a pile of some system somewhere and no one being able to do that. Sana, do you have anything to add to this one?
Yeah, it's you know, Nadia's spot on with kind of a lot of her tips and insights. I will say every kind of company is a little bit different. We, you know, at Southwest, we are a government regulated contractor. And so we follow very strict compliance regulations. And so for us, the big thing is when a job posts, the earlier you are at applying to that job, the more likely that your resume is going to be reviewed. Because the way that we have to go about, and we do have recruiters that review every single resume depending on kind of how many applicants we have, right? But the earlier that you apply, the easier it's going to be for you to be at the top of that pile. And so my recommendation is always go on the career site. If they have the ability to set up a profile, set up to get notifications around the jobs that you're interested in. And most employers do that now, so that you'll get a notification when that job's posts, and then follow up with the recruiter saying, hey, this job posted, I applied to it, I'm very interested. What can I do to be successful? Versus saying, can I set up some time to chat? The recruiter might be able to tell you kind of, yes, I want to set up time with you. Yes, I'm going to start reviewing resumes. I see you're kind of in the portal. And so they can kind of help guide you because each company is so different. The other thing, I think Nadia really kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Your resume is kind of your book and your cover of your book. I think the other thing your resume is, it's how you control your interview too. The way that you write your resume should be kind of when you go in the interview, those are the things that they're going to start asking you about. And so think about it strategically. What are the things that you want to come up in the interview, be able to talk through? A good and well-crafted resume should both be your entry into the door and should guide the entire conversation in the interview as well.
I think this is great. I did have like one thing, like, you know, especially from my past experience, especially as a fresher, and I think even senior jobs, like you see a lot of companies asking for, like, you know, resume with a cover letter. Like, is the cover letter fading out slowly, or like, you know, in your experience, you guys, like, and you know, please raise hands up, or I'll call out any one of you, but like, you know, what are your thoughts on this? You know, because that's something that, you know, like I see it in a lot of stuff, like when we apply for jobs, you know, oh, resume, your cover letter, you know, like, do we still do that, or like how important is it from you guys? Like, do you guys really see it?
I feel like this is probably, I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I don't think it is, but I have never looked at a cover letter.
No, thank you for being honest and open. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, good to know that.
Again, I don't know if that's a hot take. Every recruiter kind of has their own kind of way that they review resumes. I think for me, you know, even I know a lot of people put a lot of skills at the top of their resume, especially in technical resumes. I will tell you, when I review resumes, I go straight past all that, straight to your experience. And that's really what I'm looking at and looking for.
Oh,
Zinat, Nadia?
that's
Yeah,
great.
I
Yeah.
also I never really look at cover letters. I just pass it and go right to the resume, and I go to the meat of it, right? The experience, like what has this person done in their experience. But I will tell you that, you know, companies are different. Like at my time with Ryder, you know, we did have some senior members, executive members that want to see cover letters. They would ask for cover letters of candidates. So even if I didn't look at it, they would want to look at it. And it also depends on which department and which position you're applying for. Because if it's like, if you're applying in marketing, or you're going to do content writing, then they want to just see the cover letter to see how you write. They gauge your writing skills. So just keep that in mind, that if you are going to include a cover letter, again, make sure it's you know, it's brief, and it's, you know, the grammar is correct, the spelling is correct, and it flows very easily. It's an easy read, and it kind of flows into your resume. So that's the only point I would mention.
No, that's great. Like, I hope everyone's listening. You know, there's some like jewel being dropped at every sentence they're speaking. Yeah, Zina, go for it.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for them. And I think one of the panelists mentioned this, where, you know, I may not always have time to read a cover letter, but there are different people involved in the decision-making process that do have a lot of weight, like the hiring manager, that is the term for the person who is actually hiring to expand their team. And I have noticed that several hiring managers throughout my career think that a cover letter is, you know, thoughtful, or they get excited about it. My one-liner recommendation is that if you are entry level, if you're a new grad, or if you are pivoting careers, or if you have been out of the workforce for a bit, then I think a cover letter is nice. And also remember that there are it doesn't have to be a cover letter. So for example, if you're in like a creative field or something, then just having a reel or having a website, right? Just having like something else to add to your candidate profile is key. Shalian, is it okay if I go back to your previous question on how our attendees can set themselves apart a little bit?
For sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing that I feel very passionate about, especially over the last decade, is that something that we don't think about is how we can put seva and like voluntary service on our resumes. Some of us have done things that are literally like in the executive capacity, and we don't always know how to phrase them. Like if we are a regional education board member, we've literally, you know, managed programs for dozens of centers, for thousands of people across multiple age groups and demographics. And, you know, maybe we're a data analyst, but maybe we have project management or event building skills, right? Or people management skills through our seva. So I think like that is one thing that that all of us should get help as to how to put on our resumes and highlight. And I think that Hazrimam is also, you know, highlighted in one of his firmans that seva is like a place where you can build skills, and we're very lucky to have that avenue. The other thing I wanted to make sure to mention is that we always talk about like going out and networking and, you know, getting used to being uncomfortable, and Jamaat Khana is a great place to do that. like, or like, oh, come to Jamaat Khana regularly. Come to Jamaat Khana and talk to somebody who you haven't spoken with. Go to a nearby Jamaat Khana that you haven't been to in a while, right? And learn how to introduce yourself again. Learn how to talk to somebody who you don't think you would talk to on a regular basis. And so we have these like tools right in our backyard. And I hope that we understand, how useful these spaces can be in terms of the community that we're a part of.
No, those are really valuable stuff. Like, thanks for highlighting the volunteer seva and how we can use that on a resume, like, and to grow. Yes, Sanako, do you have something?
Sorry,
more
we're
to add?
ping-ponging you back and forth, but I'm going to go back to the cover letter thing, if that's okay. I think the big thing just to take away is, every kind of company is a little bit different. Every recruiter is a little bit different. If you are going to put a cover letter in there, don't just copy and paste something from Google and put in an objective and like that's all you put in there, because that ends up actually being the opposite of what you're trying to do, right? And so be thoughtful about the job that you're applying for, the experience that you bring, why you're looking to pivot careers, like Zinat mentioned, or kind of even including kind of some of the voluntary experience or the work that you've done, or be creative and send a video. I don't look at a lot of cover letters, but I have seen people send portfolios and videos and things like that. And those are things that I do look at, and are a really good kind of book cover for your resume.
No, I think those are great. Like, closing out on the cover letter part, like, I can personally say from my experience, bringing in like my actual like 3D printed parts was like way more helpful for my hiring manager than like getting in the cover letter. So yeah, like try to be unique, set yourself apart, like get something that they can feel, see, like what are you gonna do or how are you gonna add values. So focus on that. That's super helpful. And then for resume building too, like, volunteering seva, like we may take it lightly, and even though like we may be like what Zinat mentioned, like doing like some really bigger roles that maybe is as good as being an executive level. So like it's good to like put it in a way to show that experience of leadership, show that experience of like people management, show that experience of like going above and beyond, things like that adds value. So like definitely like those are good things to add. Wow, man, I love the energy in this room. Great. So I think we briefly touched this next part that I had for you guys is like, so maybe like today morning I read a report like, 75% of impacted tech employees found a new role in 3 months. Like, can you shed any light if you believe this is true? And like, it was CNBC or somewhere I read it through. So like, but like maybe we can start with Zinat based on like, the market trends that you've been seeing in the past couple of months.
Yeah, so I think this is like a very specific question because it actually says like, did people from tech companies, right, like find roles? I'll say that when and this, I'm trying to say this in a in an eloquent way. For example, when's a company where they hire great people, right? And their hiring process is extensive and they have a good culture. When unfortunately they do have a downturn, then another company who is hiring and doesn't have a downturn does get really excited because these are great employees with really strong work ethics, right? And so I think that other companies are ready to snatch them up. I will also say that I think companies that are not tech companies, but and I read an article on this recently, but have a lot of tech roles open, also get excited about those candidates like Southwest, right? And so I guess that's a great segue into if Sana has any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is 100% the case. And I think it's also cyclical, right? Like one of the things I mentioned that I was a contractor at Southwest. One of the things I love about Southwest is we have never in our 50-year history had a layoff. Now during COVID, we were all a little worried. We still got through with kind of that reputation intact, and it's something that we're really excited about. But that being said, during COVID, we were not doing a lot of hiring, where a lot of tech companies were doing hiring, and they were hiring extensively. And so We had quite a few of our folks that left and went to other companies, mostly tech companies from kind of our technical department. And now kind of the pendulum has swung, and we're kind of working on, we're doing a lot of hiring, and other companies are not. So I think that there's always opportunities. I think it's about kind of skills and building those skills, and kind of, again, having a resume ready, like Zenith said. But yes, I think it is still, I think there's a lot of hope out there to be able to find the right role for you.
The one unfortunate part is that people who are in non-technical roles from tech companies, from layoffs, I think that they are having a difficult time. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that their journey to finding employment may be a little bit longer.
But I also want to add, it also depends on the time, right? So like, for example, when you're in the holiday season, let's just be honest, hiring does slow down a lot. So depending on when you're applying for jobs, I think people that were impacted, like myself in December, I didn't even start looking till this week, because I knew that in the holiday season, just, from my previous experience, right? No one's really hiring. People are in their holiday mode. People don't want to do interviews. So it does take a little bit longer. So it just really depends on the time. Usually I would say, February is when you really start seeing an uptick in, new positions. Companies get their budgets approved. So then they're like, okay, now I can start hiring. This is what my headcount's going to look like. So that's when you probably will see a bit of an uptick. And sometimes it does take 3 months. I mean, I will tell you, the process with Amazon to get hired was a 3-month process for myself, and I'm not even technical. So there was different rounds of interviews. I had to take assessments. It depends on what the company's process is, right? So depending on the company, it could be, 1 to 3 months. And a lot of times, like when I was recruiting, I would be transparent with my candidates, tell them this is the timeline you're looking at. So, be patient, but this is just our standard, right? This is what it takes. Versus like AutoNation, we would hire like 2 weeks, right? We found a great candidate, 1 to 2 interviews done. There's your offer, you're ready to go. So it just really depends on the company culture as well. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is it is cyclical, right? Too sometimes. And so if you're in tech and there's kind of we're in the situation that we're in now, maybe you're open to looking at more of an operational company, or maybe you want to look at more of a service-based company. And so I think that there's some opportunities to kind of look at different areas with still that level of skill set and talent.
No, this is great, guys. Like, I mean, for people on the call here, like, there's a sign of hope. Like if you have applied for a job in the break, and if you haven't heard back, but it is slow. So be positive, be hopeful. There's a ray of hope of light there. So that's awesome. I know we are running out of time. I will do one last question, and we'll try to make this quick, and then we'll go to some live Q&A sections that has been piling up. People are putting a lot of questions. They love to hear more from you guys. So I would like to cover that. So I think the last question is, I think it gels well with what we're trying to achieve here, is like, what skills are most in demand in 2023, like on the current hiring trends? And I would like to start with Nadia here. Like, you've seen the cycles before, you have like a wealth of knowledge there. So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think technology will always be in demand. Software development, cybersecurity, those are some of the, positions that I've seen, the areas I've seen where we've always hired in all my roles that I've been in. So that definitely, I think, will always be in demand. Also, I see a lot of medical, positions, right? Like nursing, doctors. I think my husband, I read an article recently that said, I think in the next 10 years, there's going to be a huge shortage of nurses and medical workers. And so, someone is trying to think about pivoting, maybe looking at, the medical field. And even within technology, I think there's so many options in the medical industry, right? In healthcare. So those are some areas that I really see that, we're always going to be in demand. That if someone is, looking to make a change, or, is kind of considering, I would definitely focus. That would be my recommendation.
That's great. Sana and Tina, do you guys have to add anything to this one, or any specific skills?
I'll let Zenith go. I know she was excited about this question.
Yeah, I think actually, so Nadia answered part of it. I think that it's really important for us to, we have sessions, I think they're led up by our education board, where we talk about fields of the future, right? And emerging fields. And so I do think that there are fields like cybersecurity that, Nadia mentioned. I think that there will always be a need for somebody to like help you make a website. Right. There will always be a need for somebody to help you like automate something or, extract information from a big data set. And so I think that's key. I think there will always be value in being well-versed in a different language. I think the world is getting smaller. I think it's important to start thinking about where else our skills can be valuable and where can we, have stable careers and build our livelihoods. And so thinking about like, hey, where could I be in about 10 years? Which economy is developing and what language could I learn to be there? And I think also skills that will be accepted everywhere, like something like IT, right? And like networking. So those are probably my thoughts, but I do think it's really important for us to think beyond the US.
No, I thank you guys for adding this. We will jump into the live Q&A sections, and I will ping pong you guys to see like based on what I feel is the best. Look, I think I'll try to combine both these questions as one and try to frame the best way I can. As a new hire, like a lot of companies are looking for experience, but like as a new hire, you don't have an experience. It's like a chicken and egg situation. So with this situation, how do people like, shine out from that one, or like be like the top candidate? Like, is there any recommendations? I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this a lot, and we're seeing this all over the place. So like maybe we can start with Sana with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of summarizing a lot of what we've talked about, right? I think there's, especially if you're in school, looking for roles, if you have an opportunity, kind of when we look at hiring our associates, we take a look at a lot of different things, volunteer opportunities, we take a look at internships, we take a look at skills that they have. And so I think kind of collecting those experiences and being able to kind of display them on your resume is going to go a long way. I also know most companies have, on-site interviews, they come and have a presence on campus with career fairs and things like that. And so being able to kind of partake in those goes a really long way.
Okay, I do have another question since you are on here. So I think this is on a similar trend, like, recommendations for shifting new industries as a young professional with limited work experience, like, an individual with 2 or 3 years experience decided to like shift careers. Like, you initially you mentioned you tried different fields. So like based on your experience, like what are any key takeaways or recommendations that the individual can use from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the big things were being strategic, displaying the skills, so applying for roles and in the space that I was excited about, applying for roles where I knew my skills would transfer, right? I had a lot of leadership experience. I had some kind of management experience as I was kind of moving over. I had hiring experience and project management experience. And so being able to kind of display those things in the language of kind of what a recruiting manager would be looking for was something that I really focused on. I think the other pieces are, and this is more personal opinion, not being afraid to apply for a job or to reach out to somebody, to build a connection, to be able to talk to people about that are either in that role or at that company, what that company looks for. And I think the other thing is also not being afraid to take on a role. I went from owning a company to being an entry-level recruiter because that's really what I wanted to do. So there is a lot, and I still knew my value and worth, and kind of to Zinat's point, negotiated the things that I needed to negotiate, but I was okay with taking a role that was considered lower in kind of my career trajectory and path, and kind of working my way up. And I was absolutely okay with that. And so I think that is kind of what I would recommend, is just no fear.
No, totally. I like, life starts outside of the comfort zone, go for that, get out of your comfort zone, try something new, what's the worst, you'll fail, but like, at least you got a shot at it. I think the next couple topics are pretty hot that I would require like all of you guys in terms of like, like when someone applies for a job, like, how do we like ensure like they're on top of the pile? Because there are so many resumes, like from recruiter point of view, are there any tips or tricks you do to filter out applicants, or like do something differently, or like what are the things that they could do, like whether I could be keywords, could be like something else, like any nuggets to throw. I know like here we might have different opinions yourself. Maybe I'll start with Zinat here and then go around the table.
Yeah, this is a tough question because every company approaches their applicants and differently, and may have some sort of different type of ATS, which is an applicant tracking system. And so some companies may have tools that actually like sift through those resumes automatically, right? And like show you ones that might align with the role's needs. And some companies may actually have, actual human beings go through all of them. And so I agree, it's hard to stand out. I have two recommendations. And so one is with, aligns with Sana's, which I think she mentioned earlier, like apply early. But the other thing is like, don't be scared to apply again. Because maybe they have like more than one headcount open. And so if you're really passionate about a role, right, like it's okay to check and apply again. And then maybe, a recruiter will see your resume twice. The other thing is that I think sometimes we're like, oh, reach out to the recruiter, and that's great. But, in all honesty, like I'm really blessed, but I can't get to all of those messages, right? Like I'm one person. And so what I would recommend is like, for example, if you see that there is a security engineering role that you really like and you're passionate about, let's go on LinkedIn and look up who are the people who are working in that actual field, and let's ping them instead of the recruiter and be like, hey, I'm really passionate about this role and this space. I applied to this role. Could we chat for a couple of minutes? Or do you have any feedback on my resume? Or do you have any recommendations as to, how my candidacy can be surfaced, right? Or, hey, I just wanted to let you know I applied to this role, right? And I really love your company, right? And I'm so excited for, the second season of Wednesday. So I do think it's okay to put yourself out there, but to be really strategic about who you are pinging and how often you are demonstrating your interest.
Okay, no, definitely being proactive is great. I think we'll take one last question before I wrap it up in the interest of time. And like for other questions, we'll try to answer them offline.
Shailene, sorry, can I just say one comment real quick, just to piggyback?
For sure.
Your LinkedIn profile, you have to make sure your LinkedIn profile is updated. I will tell you as a recruiter, the first place I go to is LinkedIn. When I see a resume that I liked, I go on the LinkedIn profile to see if it matches along with the resume. So a lot of times I know we update resumes, but we forget to update our LinkedIn profile. Make sure you're doing that. If you can get recommendations on LinkedIn from your previous employers, your coworkers, your managers, those really stand out as well. And also having your profile photo, and I mean a professional profile photo. That's also really important because sometimes you want to put a face to the name, right? But just make sure the photo you put, because I can't tell you how many times we've passed off because we see these posts, or we see some sort of, interesting pictures on social media. So that's really important. And the other thing is with the ATS, as Zinat mentioned. So I know like a lot of companies will have some pre-screen questions that are part of their application process, make sure you do answer those, because that also helps with screening out their resumes. So sometimes what happens is, like, if a candidate answers those, and the top 10 resumes will stand out first, and then the rest are at the bottom, right? So just make sure that you're honest and you answer those questions. So this way, that will also help getting your resume up into the food chain. Sorry.
Thanks for adding that. No, thanks for adding that. Those are valuable. Yeah, no, those are all great. I think we'll take this last one. On a similar note, on the social media side that Nadia, you were just talking about. Right now we've been seeing a lot of people, mini blogging their career on their job search on LinkedIn as a means of building their brand, or showcasing their challenges that they've gone through. Is this expected for any candidate these days? Do you guys take this, mini blogging as an upkeep on oh yeah, he's super into it, or yeah, it's great, but at the end of the day, it goes down to the resume and what it matters to.
Do you mean when people post a lot on LinkedIn, with the status updates?
So I think this particular question was more mini blogging their career search, they're looking for actively jobs, and you see people posting they recently, maybe left the job and open for opportunities for XYZ, and documenting I did this, and keep posting it across the board to gain more creating their own brand by people liking their posts and stuff. Is this more or less expected from candidates these days, or you think that's good to have? But
yeah, I have a twofold answer. One, if you do that, then the purpose should be to build connections and put yourself out there from you as a candidate's perspective, right? So and it's not easy to be vulnerable like that in a platform that is full of strangers. And so if you're doing it, make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. I, as a recruiter, it is my duty to not take into account their posts and their personal posts and things like that. My job is to stay as objective as possible and to look at their skills and their merit and what transferable skills they have, and look at them based not on their picture, not on their social media, but to look at them based on their projects and their resume.
Good. No, thank you. I think as much as we can continue going, I know we're coming to an end. So I wanted to extend a huge thank you to our panelists for sharing your valuable insights, strategies, and personal experiences with us. I'm sure that everyone in the audience has gained a lot from your wisdom and expertise. Some key takeaways that I had was most importantly is to be hopeful. If you're affected, consider this as a learning or growing opportunity. Always be at your A game. Be a lifelong learner. Set time aside to uplift your skills based on industry trends, and be proactive. Have your resume up to date, and network with a lot of people. You don't have to wait till the last time. So thank you all. I would also like to thank Miriam, Naushad, Asad, Aziz, and Murad from the IPN team for making this session happen. Remember that it's important to take care of yourself and your mental health. Be supportive and kind to the people around you. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Murad, Aziz, or myself, and we will be happy to connect you with others. I'll leave you with a quote that is close to my heart by Robert Schuller. Tough times never last, but tough people do. That said, thank you all once again for joining today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaleen. Thank you all the panelists. Really appreciate your help, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.